I am the Namer, guardian of the names of power. Before your world even existed, my people were an ancient race. Now they are gone, and only I remain, keeper of my people's history. Across the endless tracts of space have I traveled, to return to the planet of my birth, Zoidstar. Though my people perished long ago, and their cities were buried by the shifting sands, the machines remain. It is these that have brought me here to perform the last act of the Zoidarian race, the giving of the names of power. When my race was young and had an interest in the affairs of the galaxy, they built the machines, mighty engines of destruction which gave the power of life and death over the other creatures in the galaxy. The Zoidarians turned their gaze outward and laid waste to 1,000 star systems with their machines, their Zoids. But ruling a galaxy was not enough for the Zoidarians. It was not the conquests, but the battles they enjoyed. And though all intelligent life trembled in the shadow of the Zoids, my people battled on, machine against machine, Zoidarian against Zoidarian, in the further pursuit of glory. Zoidarian lives were needlessly sacrificed to the god of battle, and the race dwindled in numbers until the elders outlawed the Zoid duels. But they couldn't outlaw the Zoidarian love of combat. The Zoidarian pilots of the giant war machines were replaced by androids, and thus the heroic combat could continue without threat to Zoidarian life. Too late came the order. Too late to save a once mighty race from extinction, and now only I remain. Only I and the Zoids. And though my people created the Zoids, I have no power to control them. For the war machines have become the living embodiment of the Zoidarian thirst for combat, with lives and wills of their own. They exist only to fight, to ensure that their heroic combat lasts for all eternity. Now I stand on the sand-blasted surface of a world I used to call home, high on a rock, scanning the horizon for some sign of movement, knowing that out there, behind the sand clouds, lurk the deadliest war machines in the universe. Ah! It begins!
War is in full swing. Glory for the Empire and for our King. Emperor Zenebus demands we win. Crush the Republic and the lands therein. The Death Slaughter is our ultimate Zoid. All helic Zoids in his path are destroyed, but he will need escort's protection. Let loose the Reddras with no defection. Death Slaughter is our ultimate Zoid. All helic Zoids in his path are destroyed, but he will need escort's protection. Let loose the Reddras with no defection. Reddras, cybernetic dragon machines. Reddra, still wing they are the sky queen. Reddra, force leaking red and silver steel. Reddra, their supremacy is unreal. Reddra, cybernetic dragon machines. Reddra, still wing they are the sky queens. Force leaking red and silver steel. Their supremacy is unreal. Death Sword pushes on through helic lands, crushing all before him with his metal hands. Reddras ensure no weak points are exposed, so the Death Sword remains unopposed. Puterasu are no match for Reddras. Our dragon Zoids surpass what helic has. With steel talons and blades they won't be stopped. the Nervous Empire, air control will be topped. Reddra, cybernetic dragon machine. Reddra, hostile wing, they are the sky queen. Reddra, force leaking red and silver steel. Reddra, air supremacy is unreal. But now comes the Zoid to challenge Reddras. Sleek blue flying machines and all that jazz. The Raynos shoot down the Reddras with ease. Then the Death Sword is brought to his knees. Reddra, cybernetic dragon machine. Reddra, hostile wing, they are the sky queen. Reddra, force leaking red and silver steel. Reddra, air supremacy is unreal. Reddra, cybernetic dragon machine. Reddra, hostile wing, they are the sky queen. Reddra, force leaking red and silver steel. Reddra, air supremacy is unreal. But now comes the Zoids, challenge Reddras. Sleek blue flying machines and all that jazz. The Raynos shoot down the Reddras with ease. Then the Death Sword is brought to his knees. Reddra, cybernetic dragon machine. Reddra, hostile wing, they are the sky queen. Reddra, force leaking red and silver. Planet Zoidstar, the blue Zoids lament. Android to the man is their discontent. Broken by his black Zoid, they must restore the blue guardian Zoid army to its core. With many blue Zoids lost, new ones must rise. Blue guardians with machine hearts and eyes. The blue Zoid factories must churn out more. Renegades galore. Zolkon, evil dragon monster machine. Zolkon, force in red and silver steel gleam. Zolkon, renegade with no loyalty. Zolkon, soaring on his Zoid, killing spree. Instead of guardians, we get renegades. Vicious rebel Zoids with legal steel blades. Often Zolkon is the most fast and quick as he cuts down blue Zoids, lickety split. Zolkon brings terror and death on steel wings. Rebel rampage and destruction he brings. Cruel metal claws and sleek steel dragon form. Zolkon beats his wings and strikes like a storm. Zolkon, evil dragon monster machine. Zolkon, force in red and silver steel gleam. Zolkon, renegade with no loyalty. Zolkon, soaring on his Zoid, killing spree. Neither the other renegades are spared. For rebel civil war, Zolkon is prepared. Swooping low with his deadly claws and blade, Zolkon's death dealing is part of the trade.
It is the never-ending battle between red and blue Zoids. It has been waged for centuries. It rages still, with no end in sight. I, the Namer, last of the Zoidarians, guardian of the names of power, keeper of the legend of heroic combat, have spoken.